Okay guys, so today we're going to be making a video on the basic care for a leopard gecko. So before we get into caring for him, let's talk a bit about the animal. So leopard geckos, as you can see, are very small. I'll pop my hand next to him just so you can see how small he is. That is my leopard gecko Speckles. He weighs about 100 grams and he's approaching 30 centimetres long, which is about as big as they get. They come in many morphs, which means lots of different colour varieties. So my leopard gecko is a mac snow, so they have sort of the yellow speckling and a lot of cream on them, but you can get loads of other colours. In the wild, they originate from very rocky, arid regions in Asia, so like Pakistan, Afghanistan, and northern India. So they do require quite high heating, but they're not a fully fledged desert animal, so to speak, so they don't need like mega high heating levels. They are insectivorous, which means that they'll only eat insects, although in some cases they have been known to eat plant matter, but that is another topic for another day. Now, as you can see, Speckles here is a male. You can tell by lifting the tail up, and if they have two bulges, which you might just be able to see as he walks past, but if they have those bulges, they are the hemipenal bulges. You can kind of see them right there, and they tell you that they are a male. Males also have larger heads, but when you're keeping them, leopard geckos are typically solitary animals, or that's as much as we know. We actually don't have much wild information about them. But all we do know is males will fight to the death probably, so you don't want to cohabitate males, and females, be wary of it. Some people do it, but if you're new to the hobby or keeping reptiles in general, then I wouldn't recommend keeping them together. But overall, they are a small, very gentle animal, and they're very good for handling. They are crepuscular though, so if you're wanting something that you can watch throughout the day moving about, then these might not be the reptile for you. So now let's talk about the basic enclosure. This enclosure that I have is 60 centimetres long, 45 centimetres deep and 30 centimetres tall. I wouldn't really recommend anything smaller for an adult leopard gecko because they do tend to use the space. They aren't the most active of reptiles, but they do like the space, and honestly, if I had room myself, then I would definitely go larger than this. Inside this enclosure, you will want at least 3 hides. A hide in the middle that's got moss in it to keep it moist, which allows them to shed a bit better. A hide on the hot end, and I'll talk about what I mean by hot end in a minute, and a hide on the cool end. I also feel that it is important to have some rocks on your hot end, which again I'll talk about in a sec, because these soak up the heat and they allow your leopard gecko to bask, and trust me, they do actually bask quite often. So, about heating and lighting. With the heating, you want to provide a hot spot in the hot end, sort of where the rock is that you're going to get. You want that to be about 30 to 32 degrees Celsius, which is about 90 degrees Fahrenheit, I think. And then you only want that hot end sort of to be about 1/3 of the enclosure. And then the rest, you want to sort of take it until over here it's sort of getting to room temperature, so that the leopard gecko can thermoregulate and choose what temperature it sits at. As well as this, you're also going to want to have a light gradient that matches up with the heat gradient. I always choose to use UVB. Again, I've done another video on that, so I'll leave a little link that you can check out. If you do use UVB, then for a meshed viv, you are typically going to want a 7% bulb, and if you've got an unmeshed viv, like you've got a wooden vivarium basically, you're going to want about a 2% UVB. In the reptile keeping hobby, for many species, but especially leopard geckos really, substrate is a highly debated topic. I though would swear by Arcadia Earth Mix Arid because it's just really good. It lets the leopard geckos dig burrows, which they do. It's like natural behaviour, so it's giving them something to do. It looks a lot better. You can grow plants in it. As you can see in my enclosure, I do grow plants, but it is a great substrate. Other ones you can use are ProReps Leolife and ProReps BioLife Desert, but honestly I've not used them, but I think this one is probably going to be the best out of the lot. Some people do use non-loose substrates like tiles, but I wouldn't really recommend those. I do have another video on that, so I'll leave a little card, and again you can check that out if you're interested. Now, if you're interested in going bioactive with these animals, which is something I would highly recommend, I'm not going to explain what it is here because it'll take too long, but basically if you're going to go bioactive with them, all you need to do is underneath the substrate, get a drainage layer of clay balls, then you want a separation layer of Lucky Reptile Hydro Fleece, weed blocker, or you can get a mesh, but people say that's not as good. And then in the substrate you want to add live insects. I tend to find that mealworms do this job well as woodlice and springtails. And then you want to plant plants in the enclosure. That is basically the simplest way to go bioactive with them, and I'm not going to explain what that is, but it's something I've done and it is something I would recommend. When it comes to feeding leopard geckos, this is something that does put a lot of people off, and to be honest, if that's you, then that's just your opinion, but honestly you do get used to these things. These are insects, specifically black crickets. Now with leopard geckos you do want to feed as vast a variety of insects as you can, so I feed black crickets, brown crickets, banded crickets, calciworms when my leopard gecko will eat them. It doesn't tend to like them. But there's also waxworms that you can offer as treats, mealworms, morio worms, silkworms. There's all sorts of different insects, but basically you want to feed as vast a variety of them as you can. The insects do need to be cared for separately. They're not hard to care at all for, but there is something to consider. Now, the problem is with insects is that they don't really have a very good calcium to phosphorus ratio, which basically means if you just fed insects as they come, then your reptile is going to end up with a calcium deficiency. So to combat this, we do use supplements in the hobby. So basically you get a cup that the insects can't jump out of or anything, put them in, and then put some of this powder in these packets in, shake them around, and then they get coated with them, and then you feed them to your reptile. So specifically the powders I use are Arcadia Earth Pro A, the red bag, and Calcium Pro MG, the white bag. If you're going to use these supplements, which they are the only ones that we know are safe to use on their own, and you can have a proper schedule for them that's recommended by the company, that's actually going to work. Basically, you want to feed 3 feeds of Earth Pro A, and then 1 feed of Calcium Pro MG, whilst leaving a dish of Calcium Pro MG in the enclosure at all times. My leopard gecko has had this supplement regime since I got him in February, and as you can see he's more than doubled in size since then, and he's doing really well. So I would definitely recommend these supplements. So that is it for basic leopard gecko care. Obviously I've not gone into everything in much detail because that, as I've said, would just take too much time. But I do try and make occasionally in-depth videos on the different topics of caring for them, as well as other species. So I've got like a playlist and you can check that out just to see the different bits of caring for them. But that is a basic overview so that you can get an idea of what you're going to have to do if you get one of these animals. They are a big responsibility because although they don't take up much space and whatever, and they don't cost that much, they can live 20 plus years if you care for them right. So this isn't a thing that you can just get out and then it'll live 2 years and then you can just say, oh well, that was fun, because they are going to be a companion with you for a very long time. But anyway, if you're looking for care information on these, I hope that this video has helped you out. And if you're interested in these videos, then please subscribe to my channel and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.